Welcome, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Glendale Historic Preservation Commission to order. It's 5/18, August 20th, 2026. This meeting can be viewed on local cable TV and is being streamlined online at the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current HPC agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Please know that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the HPC decision date. The appeal application is also available online. I am the vice chair. Our chair could not be here today. So as interim chair, I may reorder the agenda items at my discretion, and we are going to do a reordering of two of the items. Now, can we have roll call, please, Ani?
Yes, thank you, Chair Pro Tem Durham. Commissioner Bartanian?
Here.
Commissioner Kusev?
Here.
Commissioner Head?
Here.
And Chair Pro Tem Durham?
Here.
Thank you so much. Let the record show there's a quorum tonight.
Moving on to agenda item number 3, approval of minutes. I have a comment on the minutes. Does anybody else have any comments on the minutes before I give mine? There's a reference, there are two references to Mr. Alan Dish in the prepared minutes. The first reference, Alan Dish spells his first name A-L-L-E-N, and it's misspelled as A-L-A-N in the first reference. The second reference is correct. And I'm sensitive to this because I'm A-L-L-A-N, and no one ever gets it right.
Noted, thank you.
My father was named Alan. I had two Uncle Allens. All three spelled it differently. So,
We actually had a previous meeting where the planner was Alan, A-L-A-N. Mr. Dish spoke, and I spoke on an item, and our chair, Daniel, made a comment, and I said, yeah, but we all spell our name differently. He said, oh, we've got 3 Allens in the room. I go, yeah, we all spell our name differently. Okay. So does anyone want to move the approval of the minutes as corrected?
I approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, the minutes are approved. These were the commission minutes from July 16th, 2016, our last meeting. Item 4 is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. The Glendale Historic Preservation Commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. Ani, I haven't received any cards for general oral communication, and I don't see anybody raising a hand, so we'll move on to agenda item number 5, board and commission member comments. And Kevin, Lisa, Jeffrey. I have a question for Jay and Ani. As many of you know, Jay will be retiring from the city of Glendale. He's our principal preservation planner. And so this is his last commission meeting. And what I wanted to, so I think we would like to have some comments, but should we do that? It's not on the agenda. Can we do it at the end, or do we do it now?
let's wait till the end.
Yeah, that would be great.
That'll feel nicer.
I didn't want to be told, well, it's not on the agenda, so you can't do it at all.
I'm presuming something there, so.
Okay. We are going to switch agenda item 6 and agenda item 7. 7 is for, it's a hearing on a potential Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application, and so we won't keep the homeowners too late. We're going to hear that first. Ani, do you have a presentation?
I do. Thank you so much, Chair Pro Tem. Happy to start on the presentation right now. So the project before you today is 1625 Campbell Street. It's an application for the Glendale Register and the Mills Act. The property is located in North Glendale. It's an American colonial revival style house built in 1935. It's situated on an irregular shaped triangular lot. It's on a hilltop above Campbell Street, as you can see here. It's in the Ross Moy neighborhood of North Glendale. It is a 2-story single-family house. It has a very symmetrical facade. The first floor facade, as you can see here, is clad in flat stone. It extends up to the windowsill level, and we'll get a better photo in a couple of slides of that to kind of give you a sense of that, the varying materials. So before we get started, just a little bit of background on the possible architect Alan Kelly Roof. As you may know by now, this has been brought up in a few of our different Glendale Register and Mills Act applications. Unfortunately, early permits from the City of Glendale don't have a line for the architect listed. So a lot of the times, if we don't have plans or any other sort of confirmation of who the architect is, it's we can make certain speculations of potentially who the architect may have been. In this case, contractor was listed, and gosh, I hope I don't butcher the contractor's name. Just give me one moment. I'm going to read this. It is Tustein. That's how I'm committing to that pronunciation today. And so the house was built for Mrs. D. Miller, but because there's no architect listed, we can't confirm it. There is a subsequent permit for that does have an architect listed, and it's listed phonetically as Ruhoff. And so there's a possible assumption that the contractor, Mr. Tustein, who is pulling up the permit, may have just phonetically written down the architect's last name. And so the architect presumably as Alan Kelly Roof. He worked on many different period revival style residences, some of them which you can kind of see in these photos. I know it's a little blurry, they're newspaper clippings, but it has that sense of symmetry and that balance that we kind of can see in the Campbell Street property. I'll show you another one that has very striking similarities in just one moment. And he also worked on the Wilshire Branch Library as well, which is the photograph that we see over here. So if we look over here, this is that retaining wall where the permit for this retaining wall had his name listed. The retaining wall permit is from 1935, which is the same exact date that the house dates to. So it's a pretty high probability that it is him. But one more piece of the puzzle to kind of help confirm that is in our in the research to try to see if there's any other association beyond the permit with the architect. Southwest Builder and Contractor, Volume 86, has this little snippet view of Google that shows that the contractor's name, the architect's name, address, as well as the residence at 1625 Campbell. The issue here is that sometimes with Google Books, they'll only show you a snippet if they're not allowed to show you the whole book or the whole page of it. So I'm putting this here. I think this is quite concrete confirmation that Alan Roof designed this house. I just don't have the scanned PDF of it, but this snippet is a direct copy. And if you look at the way that Google Books looks at these snippets, I think we can confirm that it's him. One interesting thing that I found in subsequent research, just out of my own curiosity, is he was actually, after his divorce, he went to jail jail for 90 days for not paying child support and alimony to his wife, which is kind of interesting, but has absolutely no bearing on this Glendale Register nomination. Just a little fun fact. Sorry.
And they find this very funny.
So here's another example of one of the houses that he built in 1939. It's located in North Hollywood, but you can see a very similar facade treatment, the symmetry, the bay windows, even the divided light pattern of the windows compared to the one that we have here. And one interesting thing to note that this was it wasn't built for Mr. John M. Lawson, but he did subsequently live at this property. He did move out just before he became the mayor of the city of Glendale, and but he did live at the property. His father, John M. Lawson, his father, had a contracting business and was responsible for multiple different single-family, commercial, residential construction, not just in the city of Glendale, but in the neighborhood. He took over his father's business after his death in 1944. In 1949, he was appointed to the Parks and Rec Commission. 2 years later, he was appointed to city council, and by that time, he had sold the property to the subsequent owners. And once he was elected as mayor, one of the biggest things that he worked on was the cessation of sports car racing at the abandoned Glendale Central Airport after noise complaints from nearby homeowners. His wife was also very active in the community. She was one of the individuals responsible for placing one of the historic plaques at Casa Verdugo and the Andres Pico Oak Tree campsite. And here's another great photo of him posing at the controls of the Metropolitan Coach Line car on Brand Boulevard in 1955. So just a little bit, I'll go through these a little bit more quickly, just talk about some of the character-defining features. Two-story residence. It has these diamond pane leaded glass windows. It's very balanced with two bay windows on either side. And one of the character-defining features of colonial revival-style homes is beyond just the balance and the symmetry is also these groupings of windows together, which this one exemplifies. And oftentimes they would also have this sort of wing wall on the side, and this one has a one-story wing wall. It has a hipped roof with this very prominent chimney on the north elevation. It also has these great oval windows with stone surrounds, and once we get a closer look at it, you'll kind of see it has a very cool spider web pattern on there. If we see over here, it's actually a very interesting treatment of the stone. It doesn't completely like wrap around, but kind of curves in and stops right there. And this is the back elevation. It's just simple stucco, so that stone treatment is in the front. And he was actually, I did not take a screenshot of this, but I found another interesting article of him talking about stone treatments at the front. So I couldn't help myself. In addition to the application, I just had to do a little bit more curiosity for myself. And then, so as we're going through, you can see the garage is accessed through the swing wall, and it has, even the garage has a double hung window with the original OG lugs. You can kind of see the brackets that hug around the second story right underneath the window sills. And here is a great photo of those oval windows, and it has a very classical, centrally located recessed entryway with side lights and a very typical colonial revival style door. And here's another close-up detail of, you can kind of see the way that the stones come up to the windowsills and the double hung leaded glass windows. And a grouping of 3 windows on the back elevation, kind of continuing on that tradition of grouping windows on colonial revival style homes. And finally, staff finds that this is an excellent example of colonial revival style architecture. It features many distinctive and exemplary characteristics. And the one Mills Act condition is it seems like the shutters on the property, they're aluminum shutters. It doesn't seem like they date to the period of the property from staff's initial visit. And so one of the Mills Act conditions that staff has added to this is to remove the shutters. And with that, that concludes my presentation. And so I'd like to turn the floor over, and the property owners and the consultant are here if you'd like to ask them any questions. Thank you.
Ani, this was my bad, and I apologize to everybody. This is my first time as interim chair running a meeting here. I should have read the agenda item in before I asked for your presentation, so let me read it into the record now.
Yes.
Better late than never.
Sure, yeah. I'm sorry I didn't catch that earlier.
So we're on agenda item 7A, 1625 Campbell Street, Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application, PMA-0017-2026. The project description is it's an advisory review of the property owner's nomination to list 1625 Campbell Street in the Glendale Register of Historic Resources and an application to enter into a Mills Act contract with the city. Environmental determination, the project is exempt from CEQA review as a Class 8 actions by regulatory agencies for protection of the environment exemption. Pursuant to Section 15308 of the state CEQA guidelines, because it involves the designation and protection of a historic resource, and as Class 31 historic resource restoration / rehabilitation exemption pursuant to Section 15331 of the state CEQA guidelines, because any required work will meet the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. And does anyone have any questions for Ani? Any of the commissioners?
I have a
Thank you.
question. We're talking about removing all the shutters in the house?
Yes, I believe that was the initial thought. Is it seems like the shutters kind of don't feel like they make sense, and you know, it would. So the condition is to remove all the shutters.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And first, we'll hear from the owners. Sure, and you can both come at the same time or individually. Nathan Flom and Kate Gill. Do I have that right?
That is correct. Well, we are.
Oh, would you please state your name for the record?
I'm
Names.
Kate Gill.
I'm Nathan Flom. We're Kate and Nate.
We are super excited to be here. We are in love with our house, and when we saw it 2 years ago at the open house, we did not think we would be lucky enough to get it after searching far and wide for the perfect house. And so
70 houses.
we looked at 70 houses to get the one that we liked the best. So we're thrilled to be in front of you because we love this house as is and want to maintain it and keep up everything that was created originally for it. It's funny, in one of the pictures, I don't know if you caught it, but it showed a big bag over that right-hand window because I told a few of you that it got blown out in the fires, the wind that started all the awful fires. And so we kind of painstakingly found a person who could replace the window exactly as it had been to the exact dimensions and put it in. So that's kind of what we want to keep doing to all the features of the house that we love so much. And totally fine to remove the shutters because
Totally
they
fine.
are not
Original.
they're not original.
They're
definitely
plastic.
aluminum or
So-
something.
Again, we're very lucky to have found this house. I'm going to repeat some of the stuff my wife said, but we look at ourselves as stewards of the house. Like, the crazy thing about it, which unfortunately you can't see in these pictures, is that the inside is almost original as well. And so we found this time capsule that's this house that's just absolutely perfect. And it's just, it's amazing to live there. It's beautiful. and we want to maintain that. And we're very lucky, I believe, technically, we're the fourth owners, maybe?
Fourth owners,
But we're
like,
the third inhabitants. And so when we got the house, there was carpet. We pulled the carpet up. We redid the original floors. Everything about it we think is perfect, and we just want to keep it perfect so we can pass it to someone else at some point, and also other people can enjoy it. You know,
we get a lot of compliments on this
we've
house.
had a really good time with the historic tours and whatnot this year, and it was fun to appreciate it with people. So thank you for your time.
You
really.
made the cover of the tour.
We
We
did. We
did.
did. We were
did it
blown
now.
away.
Guide.
Yeah, we didn't know we would, but we were pleased we
It's
did.
just a magical property. So thank you for letting us be here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Excellent.
Next speaker is Byron Taylor.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Byron Taylor, and I am a board member for the Glendale Historical Society. And the night before the tour that they mentioned, I got a phone call from one of the planners saying, "Help, 3 of our volunteer docents have come down with stomach flu. We need someone." So without having any prior knowledge of this house, I show up at about 7:30 in the morning and had the pleasure of being stuck all day giving tours of this house. And it is one of the most phenomenal, fascinating homes I have seen in Glendale. I personally live in a Mills Act house, and like them, I view myself as the steward of my house, taking care of it so that it's preserved for future generations. And the one thing that I noticed as I was walking through this house and giving tours is pointing out the details of the interior. And I don't think they really emphasized enough when they spoke how original this house is and how consistent the design elements. The house was built in 1935, and is a great example in its living room of a deco designs in there. And the boards around the tops of the walls and the baseboards have this beadwork that is repeated in every room, even the bedrooms and bathrooms upstairs. And what is truly amazing is when you walk into this house, it is the most comfortable, modern, 21st century home that these people live in, but every aspect, floor, wall, ceiling, handrails, is all original from 1935. And I just can't say enough how fantastic this house is. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Charles Fisher.
Good afternoon. I don't know what else I can say at this point. Ani pretty much summed up everything.
Could you please state your name for the
Charles
record?
Fisher, 140 South Avenue, 57 Highland Park.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry about that. Anyway, this was a fun one to do. I don't know if you noticed the legal description on it. This house has probably one of the worst legal descriptions I've ever seen, and I've been dealing with legal descriptions for almost 50 years with my business before. And it's just amazing how this whole subdivision area came together. It was they took a large parcel and just chopped it all up. And this house is on this very interesting finger lot, yet the house fits very well on it. One of the things I noticed, Ani mentioned the Casa Verdugo connection, and I'm just right now waiting to go through Plum and through the City Council in Los Angeles, a house that was designed after Casa Verdugo. And it's almost a smaller version of Casa Verdugo. It's an incredible place. There are just so many places around here and so many tie-ins you would find on these historic buildings. But this house is, I think, very unique. Obviously, Rolf, it appears he is the architect of this house, no question about it now, what Ani found. I did not find that particular reference, and I'm going to talk to her about it afterwards. But his name's in there, and I'm sure he did it. So I recommend, obviously, that this house be declared. The loss in residence, I think the owner is important historically. He sold it just like I said, just before he became mayor. But he was in the house for almost 20 years, he and his wife. And they maintained it well, and so did most subsequent owners, it looks like, except maybe the shutters. Thank you.
Good evening, Francesca Smith. Great to be here. Thank you for calling my name. I worked on the description of this house for the Glendale Historical Society tour, and I was hoping, Ani, if you could go back a few slides to just the front. It's a beautiful house, right there. I believe that if there were, I don't think there should be any shutters. That's why I've filled that out in the first place. Although the two center windows may have had shutters, they would be shorter than they are now. If you could go back to the Ruoff buildings that he previously did. Well, that one's different. I see sort of none of those have shutters. I believe the no shutters condition is a great idea. I'm all for it, and I'm all for this Mills Act. Thank you.
Thanks, Francesca. Since that was the last speaker, I will close the public hearing portion of this agenda item, and so that the commissioners can discuss and deliberate. And since I'm interim chair, I'm going to go last. So, Jeffrey, do you want to?
Yeah, I have some comments. It's a wonderful house, and what I like about it, just from the street side, is the siding. It's a really well-sided house, and I think that's part of the charm. And then, of course, the details, the interior details, really are exceptional. I had a note also about the shutters. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I noticed that my only concern about the house is the chimney. And I know it has some bracing. It has a brace, maybe 3/4 of the way up, and then it has support. Yeah, you can see it. You can see it there, which I'm sure is all fine. And I just wanted to ask the homeowners if they had any concern or if they've consulted with anyone on the integrity of the chimney. So you may have to come.
Let me reopen the public hearing so they can answer your questions.
Thank you.
We did have the chimney looked at. We have to get the electricity shut off to have him go up because our electrical line is so close. So that is on our list of things to do for the Mills Act, to have them check the integrity. We haven't used it in any wood fire way because we don't know if it's okay to use yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely an intended plan.
Yes.
Good.
In the meantime, we've used a gas fireplace, so it's been fine.
Yeah, but we'd love to get the outside one working since that's such a cool feature of the house.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
While you're up there, any other questions for the owners before I close the public hearing? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the public hearing is now closed.
Oh, I have another comment indirectly related to this. Southwest Builder, this is an aside, is that there are hard copies of the publication, but it's not indexed, so it's really very difficult to find things in the hard copy. But SC has the hard copies. It's for anyone that's doing research in on microfilm or yeah, and I love looking through those, but it's so difficult without an index.
USC is actively looking for donations to help digitize those. So.
Good to know.
No, I also love the house, and my house is a 1938 similar design. We also have that chimney support, very similar to this setup. And we had ours inspected, and it needs to be there at the support, but it is kind of awkward. But that's how it was. No, do we have to remove all the shutters? Are we sure that it was not part of the original plans?
So we don't have a plan set. We don't have original elevations. And when I can see where you're going with this, Commissioner, like perhaps if I'm reading your mind, I'm not sure if I am. But when we were looking at the two photos next to each other of the other very similar house in North Hollywood versus this one, oh, sorry, I'm probably giving all of y'all a headache. So give me one moment. Let me go back. So, but if you look at like when we observed the shutters in person, it did not feel like they belonged there, particularly if you look at the two that are on either side of that entryway, the size, the height, and then the material also. All of those were suggestions to us that maybe this house didn't have shutters in it originally. Now we don't have any indication if maybe there were a couple there or not, but just from the way that we're looking at it and the material and overall, like all of them having shutters, staff came to the conclusion that it doesn't seem like shutters would have been appropriate for this house when it was built, so.
If the house is ultimately designated and the current owners or any future owners ever uncovered a photo from the day that showed shutters, that's the kind of thing they could come back to us or you, depending on what the issue is, and request to re-add shutters that would match what we would then know were historic condition shutters. But these are also plastic or metal. They're their proportions and dimensions, as Francesca mentioned, are not correct. They don't recall real shutters. And we're very used to decorative shutters that don't look like the traditional operable shutters of the past, but these look way off.
Yeah, I agree that it should not be obviously aluminum and the first floor probably doesn't need shutters, but the second floor, design-wise probably would be okay with shutters if it's proper shutters, for the time. Because our house also has shutters on the second floor, just like the other house on the right-hand side. It's very similar to that. So I'm just concerned if we remove the shutters, sometimes it can just look, the second floor I'm referring to, it might just look plain. But
We don't want to speculate,
yeah,
so.
yeah. That's it for me.
Well, I'll just add that I'm always so happy when a house like this gets owners like you who love it and appreciate it and want to save it. And thank you for the tour. It was a beautiful home.
I agree. It's a beautifully proportioned house. I won't repeat what everyone else said to save time, but I do have some comments on the shutters. It's driving around Glendale or Los Angeles, one of my pet peeves is when I see shutters that aren't properly proportioned. You can see how thin these are.
Yeah.
Number one, and let's go back in history. I mean, I know shutters now are decorative, but they used to be functional. I mean, they were to provide privacy, ventilation, protect against weather. And so the right proportion for any window for the shutter on each side is you take the window width and you divide it by 2. It's really simple. And you never would have the same size shutter on all the windows of different sizes. Like these are all the same size. They're all too thin, they're all too narrow, but they're totally out of proportion. They do not belong on the side of bay windows. They do not belong on the side of the entrance. And I don't believe that the upper story ever had shutters, because if they were properly sized, there really isn't that much room for them. They'd obscure a lot of the facade.
At the 2 dormers on the second floor, you couldn't even go up to the top of the window, so.
Exactly. I
But
mean,
you could chop out part of the roof, I guess, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It just functionally wouldn't have, worked. So it doesn't look right to me. And none of them are the right size for any of the windows. And I don't think the ground floor, at least on the facade, ever had shutters. I doubt this house really had shutters. But, and I know, I believe these shutters were there when you bought the house. Because I saw the listing for the house, and so a previous owner did this, but did not do it right. And because it's getting a Mills Act contract and being added to the Glendale Register of Historic Resources, as far as I'm concerned, and this takes nothing away from the house, all those shutters need to go. And I think the house will be much more striking without them. It's really kind of cluttered and distracting, and they're all the wrong size. So it looks like a big mishmash. So I agree with the condition to remove all of these newer shutters that are the wrong size and an aluminum material. And if you ever find any historic pictures that do show any shutters, that will guide you in what the replacement should be. So I do support that condition, and I support removing all of them. But it's a lovely house. It's a great addition to the register, and it will be great for it to have a Mills Act contract so you can maintain the house, properly and preserve it. So congratulations. We have not voted yet, but I think it's going to pass. So does anyone want to make a motion including any condition? I can't make the motion as chair. Jeffrey, do you want to make
Sure,
it?
I'll give it a try. I'd like to make a motion to add 1625 Campbell to the Glendale Historic Registry and for its Mills Act application to also move forward.
And Commissioner Head, if you can also include that it shall be recognized as the Lawson House.
Yes. And that 1625 Campbell will be recognized as the Lawson House.
And one more thing.
And one more thing.
Here's Columbo. As a legacy moment, and this is my fault a lot of the time, we often forget with our Mills Act conditions that we have to apply a timeline.
Yes.
Which is generally a year for modest changes, and then we can increase it for larger issues. So if you could
Right.
establish a year or whatever you choose.
Should we ask the homeowners if that's amenable, the year?
I think a year is pretty decent.
Okay, and as part of the Mills Act condition, that the shutters be removed within a year, and if it turns out that at some point in the future that there's a historic photograph or reference to the house having shutters, then that will be revisited. Yep.
Yeah, so that part we don't need as a part of the Mills Act condition, but just a good note to keep in mind. But yeah.
And just to clarify, the motion is to recommend to City Council.
Right.
We don't approve. We don't have the power to approve.
Correct.
It will go to City Council for approval.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they'll take our vote into consideration. So do we have a second?
Yes, second.
And could we have roll call, please?
Thank you so much, Chair Pro Tem. Commissioner Bartanian,
Yes.
Commissioner Cusack,
Yes.
Commissioner Head,
Yes.
and Chair Pro Tem Durham.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This item passes 4-0 with Chair Paul in absence. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. So we'll go back to agenda item listed as 6A, old business. It's the draft East-West Glendale Historic Resource Survey. Discussion and recommendation to City Council. Project description, discussion and recommendation to City Council of the draft East-West Glendale Historic Resources Survey. Environmental determination, the project is exempt from CEQA review as a Class 8 actions by regulatory agencies for protection of the environment exemption. Pursuant to Section 15208 of the state CEQA guidelines, because it provides information about potential historic resources in the city. And, you know, I'm going to ask for some guidance from Jay and Ani, because in our last month's meeting, we had Architectural Resources Group and Historic Resources Group make a presentation of their draft survey. And there have been comments submitted to the commission, and fairly substantive comments, and they've raised other questions for me. So what are we doing? I mean, what is our scope today? Because it's still a draft, and we're still, I'd still like to comment on it, but I don't think anybody's here from the consultant, right?
No, there was only one meeting was put into the budget for the East-West, so in hindsight, we probably could have added another one. I think we did the same thing for South Glendale, but I'm not remembering for sure about that. But the issue or the options that you have tonight are to review this, say we think it's excellent as written. You can say we have heard from members of the community who have concerns and recommendations, and we would like the consultant to incorporate X, Y, and Z of those conditions, and we'll take copious notes and make sure that happens. Or you could say we're not comfortable moving forward with our recommendation tonight, and we can continue it to the next hearing, which, you know, gives you an opportunity to think about these more, because some of the comments were just submitted yesterday, so obviously you haven't had a chance to digest all of that. We have shared all of the comments with the consultant. We've met with them to go over them. I can address almost all of them in terms of where we agree with the advocates from the community, or where we disagree. And there are some global issues that are of concern to members of the community that I think are completely off base. And I'm happy to share that thinking with you. And they will share their thinking, I'm sure, in whatever direction they want to take that. So those are the options. We have reviewed the documents. We think it's a very good survey. The narrative portion is excellent. It's nice that we have new writing in many cases. A lot of times the early history of Glendale is just cut and pasted from one document to another. There may be a few tweaks here and there, and I'm not saying that some of that didn't happen in this document, but there's a lot of fresh writing in there, and it's well done. It's a nicely written document. The goal of what we're doing in the three surveys, South Glendale, which we've completed, East-West, which we're looking at tonight, and then North Glendale, which has already begun, but you'll be reviewing that probably early next year. Or no, actually, I think in the fall, it's scheduled to be coming back for us to get the draft for that. So at the end of that process, we're going to have a context for the entire city, and we're going to have a survey for the entire city. Of course, some of the data's already past its 5-year prime, as we are directed to look at surveys differently after they pass the 5-year mark. But nonetheless, the information's going to be there. It's going to be incredibly useful for you, for us, for property owners, for property developers, for preservation advocates, for people who are not preservation advocates. It's going to be amazing for us to have this. It's been a long-held dream. It's been discussed for decades to have a citywide survey, and we're getting close to having that. So we're happy to present this part of it. And like I said, I've got some slides to just share with you about the overall numbers and some of the interesting properties that were discovered. Some we knew about, and some are properties, you know, I've been here 19 years. I haven't driven on every street in the city, and some of those the properties are like, wow, that's amazing. And hopefully you had the same experience going through the document. So, so with your permission, we can do the staff presentation. We have a PowerPoint from one of the, and you're going to be representing Kathy's slides, or?
Just for me, I'm not representing anyone else.
Okay, okay, so Kathy Yerka may or may not be calling in then also. But one thing to know is for this survey, we have done more outreach than has occurred in any of our other historic surveys. We have the new Engage Glendale page, which is gaining traction. I don't think every person in Glendale is using that at this point. May never be everyone, probably not. But we also sent information to many community groups, and we cast the net really wide. So we sent to homeowners associations, obviously. We sent to many religious and cultural organizations. We sent to the several real estate groups, the Chamber of Commerce, a lot of people that we have on the city's list for regular outreach, and then we kind of culled that to think about, well, which of these groups, and we were very open in thinking about which ones would be interested, but there were some that we obviously, why waste our time sending them to some organizations? So anyway, with all of that outreach, we got very little feedback, and that's not hugely surprising. But I just want everyone to know that this was a bigger effort, and it's a sign of the kinds of efforts. It's easier to do this kind of thing these days than it was earlier when we have large-scale projects like this. There are 22,026 parcels in the survey area. And so this outreach was more extensive than the South Glendale survey, for example, although that was tied with the community plan where we had kind of different kinds of meetings. We are not moving forward with an East-West community plan at this time. Originally, the plan was to have this kind of tied into that. And because of staffing and funding issues, that's not happening now, but it will happen at some point. We have to keep our community plans updated and alive. So I can present what I have, answer your questions. I don't have slides prepared to discuss the things that we've reviewed from the community members who've submitted materials. So it might be better for them to present, and then for you, if you choose to ask questions, and I can give feedback. The main thing I'd like to emphasize, though, is both Kathy Yerka's comments and Francesca Smith's comments are very critical of the type of survey. And they focus very much on the fact that this is an intensive level survey, yet we don't say who was the owner and what did they do and what happened at this property. And that is not what this kind of survey does. This is a broad-based survey that's getting just the basic information out that helps discern what properties may be eligible for the register. We don't expect the consultant, in the RFP, we didn't ask for this, to do the full intensive research that you would if we were researching a historic property individually or doing a historic resource assessment for a property or group of properties. So that expectation should, you may hear it, but I just want to say on our end and on the consultant's end, this is the standard practice for surveys today. And the two consultants, Historic Resources Group, working as a subcontractor to Architectural Resources Group, are the preeminent firms working in this field in Los Angeles. They were the lead firms working on Survey LA, which is still the largest historic resource survey in the country's history. And through Survey LA, a lot of the techniques that we are seeing in our survey were kind of honed and developed for that survey. So there's some criticism that there's boilerplate that's repeated from property to property without further kind of expansion, I guess. And that is normal for a survey like this because there was discernment in the field by the survey teams going out. So just because we're not speaking to why is this house, the best or the most exemplary specimen of a mid-century modern style, that's not expected here. That's, the discernment was done during the survey period, and there are lots of examples of properties that were not included in the survey. The survey ultimately found 1% of the 22,000 properties to be potentially eligible at the individual level for the Glendale Register. So there's a lot of thinking that goes into that process before it ever makes it into the draft form. So I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on some of the commentary from the community, but this is a very standard kind of survey process and also a standard product that we would expect from the DPR forms in the survey. So
Jay-
that's just a little introduction. Well, I guess we can wait unless you have any questions about that, Jeffrey.
I have a couple of general questions. So as far as the public comments and forthcoming public comments, but the public comments through the emails and so forth, along with my own comments about omissions, properties that were not included that, you know, we would probably recommend or would like to see included. Those addresses through forthcoming comments and in the emails, those addresses will be extracted, or do they need to be verbalized and recorded here as part of a recommendation for inclusion?
Ideally, and this could be why a decision is going to be finalized tonight, ideally, and this happened with the South Glendale survey, the commission went through with a fine-tooth comb and said, we agree, this does look like something we should include in the survey. We disagree, this should not be included. We've gone through all of the recommendations from the community for additions for overlooked properties.
Okay.
And it's not unusual in a survey. First I'll address that. We agree with many of the recommendations from both Kathy's letter and Francesca's documents. So we agree that some of those properties should be on the register. We've already talked to the consultant and they're ready to add them. So if as part of your discussion you let us know, we think we agree, we disagree, whatever, we'll keep notes on that. And that would be one way to know that we're going to transfer that information to the consultant if you are inclined to kind of recommend moving forward tonight.
Okay.
So
I have some addresses that I'd like to submit, but can I just email those to you?
Well, I think making them public tonight is a really good idea. We have access to Google Street View, if they're not blurred out, that we could share them with people to look at this.
Okay.
We also don't want the meeting to go to midnight, but.
Right. No, I'll bring up the addresses. And then the last question I had, and I don't know if this is part of the arrangement with the report, is that I didn't see an index or an addendum for historic, houses on the historic registry and houses that were on the Mills Act. And I don't know if that was not part of it, and it was not an oversight, but that there was no reason to include it,
Yeah, we have all the numbers for that, and I think they address that to some degree, but the idea was we're looking for new properties here.
Okay,
They indicate how many, and I have a slide with how many Glendale Register properties were in the survey area. They did not resurvey those properties to see if they're still eligible, because we have reason to know that all of our Glendale Register properties are still eligible. We have never heard that any of them have been significantly altered. We see a lot of them fairly often, so.
it was something I was expecting to see, but it sounds like it's.
When the consultants identified 10 potential historic districts, and when a property was seen as potentially individually eligible and in a potential district, that's called out on the DPR forms. I think there are some Glendale Register properties designated that are in some of the newly identified districts, and I think those are called out on DPRs. So I think they've covered that, but if you have thoughts or think something was missed, the consultant's going to revise the document as needed. They're going to listen to you and ultimately to council. And
It sounds like there really isn't a reason for them to include what's already on the registry and what's already on the Mills Act
yeah,
in the same
they've
report.
they've looked at previous surveys that were done that are relevant to the area. They've looked at the designations. One thing I need to note is that council directed us to have a high bar for what makes the cut here. And so we have 226 properties that were identified. And so we have to respect that the consultant understood that and really was looking for the high bar. There's room to disagree among professionals always on, does this make the cut, does this not make the cut? But ultimately, you guys are the boss in terms of telling us how to revise the draft to get it to the status of being a final, because we're going to only bring the final to council. So we want to make sure that the draft reflects your input and the community's input.
Jay, I have a quick question. Last month, ARG said, I know it's in draft form now and subject to revision, but she said that, and showed a slide, that it needs to be finalized by September 30th, although going to City Council was to be determined date. What's the deadline September 30th represent?
This is, we received a $40,000 certified local government grant to partially offset the cost of the survey. That relates to that. We've talked to SHPO about those dates. They do not need to have a final document for us to submit the reimbursement request for the funding. We put the money out, and then we have to ask for the money to come back and show that we've spent that. So that's where that date came from.
But it's not a hard date anymore?
The funding, it is a hard date for us to submit the paperwork to SHPO.
But in draft form or final form?
That doesn't matter for the funding. They're going to be
So-
okay with it. We just talked to them about this.
Okay, but that to me means that September 30th isn't a drop-dead deadline for the final report, survey.
No, we would love, if you're going to be hearing this the third Thursday in August, if you choose to continue the item, September, sorry, yeah.
Well,
so-
you were mentioning that we might still be discussing it, potentially, we might still be discussing it at next month's meeting, and that would be awfully close to the 30th.
Yeah,
That's-
you don't need to worry about the deadline.
Okay,
There's
that was my
It's not going to
concern.
be an issue, so, yeah, because.
My goal is to obviously get something to council that's final, right? And if we're already all agreeing that we're going to add addresses to this list and adopt some of the comments that we got into the plan, don't we just want to just automatically push it to the next time so we review a final document instead of us talking about it now and hearing some of the same comments?
That's totally your option, so.
Because we're going to hear the same comments that we've already all agreed that we're going to adopt anyways. So just push it to the next time.
Well, no, we're going to hear the item tonight. We're not going to push it.
Yeah,
We're
it's,
going to hear from the community. You'll hear staff's response. You'll hear from the Historical Society, I assume, and you'll process all of this. And whether you're comfortable giving us direction to move this forward or not is totally your call.
What I would suggest is, Jay, you present first, you and Ani, whatever you have, and then we have open the public hearing and hear from the speakers, and then come back for questions and discussion of the commissioners.
Yeah, staff has specific responses to most, if not all, of the comments that came in. And like I said, we agree with some of the comments and we disagree with others, and we'll share our reasons, but ultimately, you are the decision makers here.
So do you want to go ahead with whatever you have?
So I nabbed a few slides from last month's presentation just to reorient everyone. This central section of Glendale spanning east to west from the 134 freeway on the south up to Spar Heights and Montecito Park on the north is what we have determined to be the east-west Glendale area. Even though those terms are not commonly used in the community, For mapping and naming purposes, that's how we came to this this boundary and the names. Here we just see the same map close in with the street layout. A lot of open space in this area. So in both the Glen Oaks and Chevy Chase canyons, and then in the Verdugos, and also up toward La Cañada, we have a lot of open space in here. So that's where you see these kind of more blank areas. 109 properties that are now listed in the register are within the boundary. And as I said, there were about 22,000, just a little over 22,000 developed parcels. So we didn't look at the open parcels that don't have anything built on them. We have 8 of our 9 historic districts are located in East West Glendale, and both of our pending historic districts are in this area. Here's a nice map of the identified properties in the survey. We have the most prominent ones are the dark blue that you see. Those are identified as individually eligible parcels. Some of the parcels look really big because they're big properties, so they kind of take up a little visual space on the map. But we also see a peppering of smaller, often single-family lots throughout the survey area. The purple, which is really hard to make out because there aren't that many, are the properties that were either unevaluated because there were issues, they were not visible, or the properties that are 6Ls, those that have some historical interest but have been altered to the degree that they wouldn't be eligible in their current condition. We just have, I believe, 3 of those. The potential historic districts, of which there are 10, are identified in light blue. And we've always kind of joked that at some point the entire foothill of Verdugo Mountains could be seen as a historic district, or at least large swath of that. And you can see some of this is moving in that direction. And we have the designated historic districts are highlighted in the pink, and then the pending districts are in the kind of yellow, ochre, whatever that is. So, so this map is good. It's not super useful at this scale, but when you zoom in, you can start seeing more. 226 individual properties identified. That's about 1% of the total built parcels in the survey area. 10 districts containing 437 contributing properties that are also individually eligible. And I have to confirm, now that I'm saying that, I can't remember if that's the total number of properties or the eligible. I think it's the or the contributors, not the combined contributor and non-contributor. So we can verify that if you need, but ultimately it's just a number. It'll be one thing or another. So starting with the 10 districts, nothing has changed since these were presented to you at last month's hearing. We have a large residential district sandwiched between Brockmont Park and, where are we here? Yeah, and the, I guess, Ardeven Highlands and South Cumberland Heights. You could see that in blue, sandwiched between Brockmont and the Cumberland districts. We have a small residential district identified on Highland Avenue, really great district just off of Royal Boulevard that I always wished that had been considered as part of Royal Boulevard back in the day, but it wasn't. We have several multifamily historic district potential districts. The 2 on Glen Oaks, highly problematic with SB 79. They're identified. We don't know what's going to happen there. We are, going to be sending out letters. I think we discussed this last month. We're going to be sending letters to every property owner in all of these 10 potential districts, letting them know, hey, your district has been identified. It's your job to come back to us to tell us if you want to designate it. Is this the best time for district designations in Glendale or not? Open question. I think I know the answer. But we want the community to know. We don't want it to be kind of just a document on the shelf that tells us there may be a district, but everyone didn't know. The same is true for the 226 properties. Once this is finalized, we're going to mail a letter to every property owner and resident, letting them know, because sometimes we have absentee owners and we want renters to know, because sometimes renters are doing things to the properties they live in. So we want everyone to know. So we're going to do all of that outreach once this is finalized. And then 3 commercial districts were identified. Kenneth Village, which a lot of people in the area have always said, why isn't this a district? And I've never been 100% sure looking at it, but the survey team felt it had strong potential. Very small equestrian commercial district. They did not find a residential equestrian area in the Glendale Rancho. I think a lot of people in that area are going to be disappointed because they've been hopeful that there would be a district. I've personally never thought there was one there. That could change, and people can still, this is not the be-all and end-all. If neighbors in a district that hasn't been identified in this survey come to us in the future, we're not going to say, oh, well, you weren't in the survey, so we're not going to listen to you, or we're not going to take your application in. So it's possible that other neighborhoods are going to come back to the commission and to council in the future saying, hey, even though we're not in the survey, we think there's something special here. Or we might, over time, as the city changes and things may erode, some of these neighborhoods may become more distinctive or special or rare and come in the future. So there's no cutoff because we've done the survey. And then we have a small mid-century commercial district on North Glendale, just up the street from us here. I pulled out a couple of, well, multiple hands full, but not too many, of properties that I'm just going to go through quickly. And this is really for the public. A lot of you have already looked at this. We have a lot of great stuff in Glendale. And some of it's, we've known for years that our libraries were really great, well-designed libraries from the mid-century era up until the 70s when the Chevy Chase branch was built. So all of the libraries in the east-west area were identified. So this Grandview branch is an example of one of them. This is a very nice ranch house, which is great. We love ranch houses, but they don't often rise to the level of designation sometimes. This one is by William Mellenthin. They're called the bird houses, and he did a lot of development in the valley, in the kind of further west in San Fernando Valley. Noted for his bird dovecotes on his ranch houses, so people just call them the bird houses, not to be confused with houses by Robert Byrd, which is one of the properties that we share with the community voices that should be on the list and was not included in the survey. And then we found places like this, or the consultants found places like this on Beaudry Terrace. It's like, wow, this is kind of amazing. Something you wouldn't expect in this neighborhood in particular. Houses that I've driven by a million times and said, why isn't that on the register? It's phenomenal. Beautiful example of a Monterey that's on Bel Air. Bel Air has a wealth of nice houses, and I don't remember this one jumping out at me because I'm looking at other things maybe when I'm driving through there, but this is a really excellent example. Olive Brand Park is identified. Francesca Smith will share that Brand Park is already identified as National Register eligible and California Register eligible. Arlene Vidor, who I think you all know, is working on a National Register nomination for Brand Park. So it's a full nomination rather than a survey identification. So that hopefully will be prepared in the near future. But what this acknowledges is that Brand Park is special as an entity as well as having all of these designated individual buildings and cemetery on it. So this is good. Just so you know, a car crashed into the planter with this breeze block on it at the north end of the driveway, closer to the library. And we were able to find the identical breeze block is still made, so the city's going to be rebuilding that section of wall. They found that the new block was like a 1/4 inch off, so they're going to do some clever masonry work to keep the module alive and make the joints a little different. But I was very excited to help them find that.
Is that Angelus Block?
I think it was, yeah. So But I was skeptical that we were going to find this block, and I was like, no, it's right there. So it was wonderful, and it's not crazy expensive. The former Nestle headquarters on Brand by Johnson Fain and Pereira Associates is from, I believe, 1990. I had notes on the slides, and they're not showing up on the screen, so we'll live without those. But identified as, probably our most recent large-scale commercial building to be called out. We've always known that we have great religious buildings in Glendale. This is the Church of the Incarnation on North Brand. This is St. Gregory's, I think. Is this St. Mark's, yeah. St. Mark's on the other side of North Brand. One of our earliest high-rise residential buildings, which, given where the world is now, I wish we had more of these. If we're going to densify, let's do it this way and not the way it's been happening. But that's who's listening to that? No one. Sometimes I say this is my favorite building in Glendale. Usually it's the Alex, but sometimes it's this. This is by Charles Moore, the former Christian Science church that's being converted into kind of a school for young children. So far, they did some very bad work when they first took over the building. We busted them. They brought it back. So far, so good with this one. But I love this building, and if you ever have a chance to get inside, which may be less likely now, the sanctuary is an incredible space. I really love it. There are still craftsman houses, even though South Glendale has the wealth and the majority of the craftsman houses in the city. We still have them in East West Glendale. We have them in North Glendale. Gotta love the Ralphs. If you like this kind of stuff, this might be polarizing for some people, but I was happy that the consultants found it to be eligible. And apartment buildings like this and the kind of French Revival Norman kind of style. Everyone who's driven up Chevy Chase probably has seen this house. I've always loved it. Again, why isn't this on the register? It's a great place. We now have a recommendation to move eligible properties into the 21st century. This is the KABC building built in 2000 by Cesar Pelli. And so the recommendation is that this should be considered as an eligible property. We have a series on Dearmont and in this neighborhood of these kind of Grecian modern houses that really remind me of what Mount Olympus used to be back in the amazing Mount Olympus days, but that's pretty much all gone. So some of these are quite special up here. The consultants found this city walkway, or the developer built these walkways to help people get up and down in some of the hillside neighborhoods. So they had identified this as eligible. Another kind of groovy 70s thing happening here. This might be 80, I can't remember. All along Melwood area, which you just saw last month, the house on Ridgeview had a stone wall in front of it that was retained when they built the mid-century modern house. There is a retaining wall that was retained. But through this neighborhood, there's a lot of stonework. So the consultants identified this as a character feature worth protecting. And just to note that in North Glendale, when we did the North Glendale Community Plan, stone features were also a huge, important thing for the community up there. So we've been trying to keep those alive, even though they're not officially identified. But when the survey goes up north, I believe they'll probably make a similar determination for the stonework in that neighborhood. On Glen Oaks Boulevard, I'm sure you've seen this building, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright's grandson. So identified as eligible. Grandview Memorial Park seems clearly eligible here. 1883, I think, was first opened. And the consultants identified a bunch of infrastructural buildings, water pumping stations and electrical substations, and identified them individually as being eligible. Francesca is challenging the survey by thinking these should be identified as a group of resources and that the consultants should have been consulting with Glendale Water and Power. we think it's completely appropriate to identify these as they have been in this survey. And we have a few, just 2 examples in this slideshow, but there are a couple of others out there. And we've always known these were cool, and especially the one at the Western Reservoir, which is designed to look like a little Spanish house, and it's in a residential neighborhood. And, you know, people aren't designing that thoughtfully much these days. So it's kind of cool to have those identified. We've always worked with the owners of this property to say that, hey, this gas station is pretty special. It's very similar to the gas station in Adams Square Park, or the mini park there. And so far, they have been respectful of this. It's now a preschool, so there have been some changes, but it's pretty intact, high integrity property. Kenneth Road, how many times have I driven on Kenneth Road? Very nice example of Tudor that I never had noticed. So, a building I've known about since I started here, Pierre Koenig, not a lot of Koenigs out in the world, identified in the survey, but this is one of those 3 properties that was identified as what we call in status code land as a 7R. It is not possible to evaluate this property fully from the street, so we don't know what its level of integrity is. But because it's identified as a 7R, it's going to get a hold in our permitting system. So when people come to us saying, I need to do work on this house, we're going to say, hey, we need to look into this a little more. We need to be invited in and look at what you're doing and see if the house is still intact or not. So it's potentially cool. Clearly, it's worse for wear and some alterations, but we're excited to have this officially identified. This is a house that's in, I can't remember which district, one of the Cumberland Heights districts. I've always just loved this house for some reason. It just jumps out at me. So it's nice to see this kind of identified as individually eligible. This house on Melwood was called out. This is an amazing pair of houses that are both identified. Kathy Yerka, in her comment letter, identified the architect for this that isn't in the survey. They haven't been able to confirm that, so that's the kind of research they're going to do based on getting the report. But I just want to, you can't see a lot of this from the street, and Kathy says there's a fountain that runs on the property line, or a little river, or a little fountain channel, I guess, which you can't really see here, but super cool. But look at these gates, and specifically look at this ironwork and this wisp of smoke coming out of the adobe or whatever that is, embracing the initials of, I assume, the original owners or owner. And I've driven on this street a lot, but I somehow had not seen this, and I was thrilled when this one came in. Another high-rise residential property, this is by Bill Kreisel and Abraham Shapiro, is called out. Many of the bridges over the Wash that aren't already designated have been called out. This commercial strip is called out, I guess it's one building. And Francesca, in her notes, rightly criticizes the survey for having some not so great photographs. So I actually, for this slideshow, I said, that's a dim photograph. And I did some brightness correction to just make it more legible. The consultant acknowledges that some of their photos were not ideal, not taken at the right time of day, and that they hadn't done this kind of correction. They're going to go through the whole document and correct the photos. If they need to reshoot the properties, they'll reshoot them. So we agree with that comment, and we've already addressed it with the consultant, but you let us know. I assume you'll agree on that one. This is a property that is criticized in Francesca Smith's letter for being included. This is a very specific piece of architecture that was a big part of the San Fernando Valley development as I was growing up in the valley. And that doesn't mean anything in terms of this survey, but there was a company called DNS Realty that developed a lot of these wood-clad, volumetric, geometric kind of buildings starting in the 70s and a little bit into the 80s. And we don't have a lot of examples like this in Glendale, so I think the consultants rightly identified this as potentially eligible. Temple Sinai, another one of our interesting religious properties, is criticized for being included also under criterion A. I don't know if the consultant went into much depth on this, but when I first came to Glendale, in my first few months, I was driving all over the city looking for modernist stuff because I was asked to give a presentation. And I was like, oh my God, there is no synagogue in Glendale. The stories are true. And then I found Temple Sinai, and I was like, okay, here it is. But we don't have documentary evidence at this point that when we had restrictive covenants on our properties that Jewish people were also excluded, along with Mexican Americans, Black people, whoever else were East Asian people. So that's a story that needs more information, but I do think that this may have some very serious significance as a statement about the place of the Jewish community in Glendale as it grew over time after potentially facing discrimination in earlier years. We have this house on, and I repeated the typo that's in the survey. This is on Parway Drive, so duly noted. An interesting example of this period of architecture and type. It was also owned by one of the Bastang brothers. So if you know the auto body shop on, where is it, on Glen Oaks going up, or it's on Chevy Chase? I can't remember. Chevy Chase, yeah. We already have fought back and forth over the significance of the Bastang brothers. If they are significant, the Bastang shop is very intact, and that was their place of business where they were working on cars. All of my research, based on kind of shadowing the research that was provided to us for a previous project owned by one of the brothers, suggests that the Bastang brothers are not significant in the history of car culture, hot rod culture, car customization culture. Though, you know, they did some cool stuff, no doubt, and they were noted a couple of times in the journals of the period for one specific car that they did, but there's no evidence that they're significant. But the house is, at the end of the day, doesn't matter if we can find significance for either associations or architecture, but it's good to have that story. Is there something? Oh, there. I thought it was something else. This house, again, I'd never seen this, has this very cool printed or stamped or molded masonry block. Fun to see this. This house on Ridgeway Road was designed by a woman. Is that significant? We don't know that much, but we don't have a lot of properties in Glendale designed by women. It's identified for its architecture, but further research could determine that. And this is a point I should have made in my little preamble at the beginning. Just because something's in the survey, like I said, you can't just hand in the survey form. So any property that is either proposed for future designation or for future demolition or substantial alteration, much deeper research, the truly intensive survey is going to go into that, which is where we might find out information about who designed this house, what place it has in the broader context. But for now, it's identified, and that's great. We have this 1980 house identified on Rimcrest as kind of a postmodernish kind of property. And some things I'm not. Yeah, I look at this and I'm like, but it's in there, and I'm not gonna fight against it because it is definitely different than a lot of other things we have. That's not a reason to find something significant, but the survey team did, and that's the kind of thing you'll be considering. Here's a water pumping station, or no, I think this is electrical substation again, residential scale. Here's a building I hope we all know, this amazing substation on San Fernando Road. Identified, this has gone through a lot of process internally over the years. So we've identified this as historic for the whole time I've been here at least. GWP originally proposed tearing down the wall on the left because it was made of brick and it was unreinforced brick masonry. And they were gonna tear it down and just build a generic wall there. We were like, no, historic building. Page and Turnbull was hired by the city. We solved the seismic issues by putting a big layer of shotcrete on the inside. And so the exterior of the building is unchanged from that work. Then they came to us sometime after and said, we need to expand the substation. So again, because we do design review in Glendale, we had the opportunity to say, okay, well, this is a historic building, so let's separate it from the old building. They originally said, well, we're just going to make it look the same. And I'm like, well, whoever was working on this was not capable of the work to make it identical, and that itself is a bad idea. So we said, let's riff on it. And this is one of my favorite things that I've been involved with in Glendale. And you look at this and you're saying, material palette's not great, color choice is not great. The design, I think, is fine. It kind of riffs off of the window pattern that you see here. But when they came to us with all these different potential symbols to put up over the windows, and the idea was presented that I was very happy to be part of, to take the on-off, power on, power off symbol from your computers and other things and put that there. And then I think there's the subtle thing, GWP has the power, turn it on or turn it off. So I don't know that anyone's reading it that way but me, but I enjoyed being part of that decision-making. We have the Aurora Market. Glendale was the first site of a drive-in market in the entire country. It's a very specific type. This is not that one. That one is long gone from Chevy Chase in San Fernando, I think, on the south side. But this is identified, even though it has been altered, it's such a rare property type and so important, not just in the development of Glendale, but commercial development in Los Angeles and beyond, that the consultant team said, yeah, we know the integrity is challenging, but this is really important. So this was included. The Chili Bowl, I've been working personally to save this building forever. Someone sheared off this fire hydrant years ago, and the whole roof was collapsing. It did horrible damage to the site. The owner was not interested in taking good care of it. I don't know if he's still around. John Stamos's uncle was involved in this, so it has all these connections. If you ever were driving out on the 134 and saw Wizen's restaurant back in the day, it's kind of a steakhouse in Agoura, I think, or I can't remember, but on the side of the freeway. Arthur Wizen was involved in the Chili Bowls. This may be the last Chili Bowl left in LA. There was one on Pico in West LA that there was a big preservation fight over. Ultimately, the city council person there said, we're not going here, and so that was demolished a few years ago. So we're hopeful that someone's going to find a way to use this site and bring this back. The Glen Capri Motel was designed by Arme Davis, who did Pans and the Norms on La Cienega and lots of Denny's back in the day. Architecturally, this was not identified as a significant building, but the sign was. So we have a sign recommended for eligibility that wouldn't exist if the building went away. So that's something for you guys to consider. Luckily, we have a neon museum. If there was ever an issue, maybe there's a home there. I'm realizing this is going on a little longer than it should, so I'll go quickly. But this building is super important as the first site in Glendale and a major site for Walter Elias Disney Wed Enterprises, the designers of rides at Disneyland, Disney World, and then the other Disneys around the world. So this was their first location in Grand Central District. This is one of the properties identified as a 6L. We don't want to let go of the fact that we know this is where a lot of stuff happened for Disney and for Wed in particular. Super altered from what it originally was, unfortunately, super cool back in the day. But the survey team thought it was important to keep that alive with the 6L designation, just to remind us. This is the current headquarters for Wed. Disney didn't build this building. It was Cosmetic Girl, now I'm forgetting the name, but it was a cosmetics company for a short time, and then Disney bought it and moved Wed into the building. Cool craftsman with a gambrel roof, don't see that every day. We have 3 Richard Neutras in Glendale. 2 of them are across the street from each other on Sun Court. This is the one that's in better condition, the one across the street less so, but both are identified as eligible. I'm presuming that the third Neutra will be probably a 7R because it's up a private driveway and it's a 60s Neutra. Beautiful, really, really great house. It has been suggested from the community that this should also be a historic district. If we have 2 identifications of Glendale Register eligibility, there is no reason for us to think of this as a historic district. And just think, if it were just a historic district, we only regulate what you see from the street. And a lot of Neutras, especially on hillsides, there's a lot of stuff going on the downslope side. So anyway, those are identified. Robert Bourbon, who used to sit at this dais on the Planning Commission toward the end of his life, designed the Vallejo Drive Seventh-day Adventist Church, cool apartment building on Verdugo. And here's one of those, where'd this come from? You know, I don't remember ever seeing this house. It's whacked out in its way, but identified as something that's potentially eligible. So that's the end of that. Just to remind you that the survey team has already begun its work in North Glendale, which is identified here, so that will be coming back to the commission in the future. So now you can take public testimony, or if you have any questions before you do that, let me know.
We looked at that last house to buy, but it got snatched up on Winchester.
Yeah.
We almost bought that one.
Is it cool inside?
It is really cool. Yeah.
Great.
Well, I have some comments. Can I?
Well, can we, our public has been waiting a long time.
Sure.
I'd like to give them the chance to speak, and that might also inform some of the things we want to talk about and comment on.
Okay.
So if we can move on to that, Commissioner?
Of course.
Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing, and I've got several cards here. The first one I have is Ingrid Wilcox. And if you could give your name.
My name is Ingrid Wilcox. Good evening, commissioners and staff. Oh, there's a sun right there. I can't look that way. I'm on the board of directors for the Glendale Historical Society. I'm also on their Preservation Action Committee. Foremost, we'd like to compliment the city and ARG for the quality of the work of this report. Given the nature of the survey, it's inevitable that some potentially historic properties may have been missed, in particular those not visible from the street. One example is the property located at 2707 Hermosillo Drive, which Mr. Platt has previously commented is register worthy. Another example of a property worthy of consideration is 1429 Capistrano Avenue. Not only great house, it was resident for decades was the architect Otto H. Killian. And Senior Vice President, I'm going to screw up this name, Perriera and Luckman, and listed as the lead architect for the Inglewood Forum. Other properties of note due to original owners are 1811 Kenyatta Boulevard. W.W. Crenshaw became the owner of the Oakmont Country Club after it burned down in 1932 to 33. He was responsible for rebuilding it. And 2415 Kenyatta Boulevard, which was the George Seeley family house, when he operated Seeley's in South Glendale. In addition, no potential historic districts within the Verdugo Woodlands have been identified, despite ARG's comments at the Cleveland Knolls public hearing that there were likely some areas that may be considered, although none were identified in the survey. TGHS, the Glendale Historical Society, would like the survey to be updated to reference those. We understand that the survey is not intended to be conclusive and that additional historical resources will likely be identified in the future. And in closing, we'd like to thank Jay Platt for his service to the city of Glendale and wish him the best in his pending retirement.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Could you repeat the first couple of addresses? I was going to jot them down.
2707 Hermosillo Drive
Okay.
and 1429 Capistrano Avenue.
Yes.
Is that it?
You gave us 4 in total?
Yes.
And who was the resident at 1811 Kenyatta?
W.W. Crenshaw.
Thank you.
It? Thanks.
Just so the commission knows, we've already indicated to the consultant that 2707 Hermosillo, which is totally invisible from the street, looks amazing and should be included. It'll probably be a 7R. And I think the other three are new to us, so we'll obviously share those if you choose, and they'll evaluate them. What we won't be able to do, just because you hear from the community and then you say, yeah, let's put them on, we want the consultant, because they have the breadth of knowledge of the entire East-West Glendale, which is the pool that these things are being, thought of within. So, but I have no doubt that these are worthy properties, so it's possible. I have doubt, I don't know, but we'll look into it definitely.
Joanna Pringle, and you got 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Joanna Pringle. And I think I'm pretty typical of your average Glendale resident, probably. I love living in Verdugo Woodlands. I walk in the area daily. And ever since, by the way, the survey narrative is absolutely fantastic. It's the best report I've ever read coming out of the city, and a real page turner. I was, going to spend 5 minutes on it, and then I couldn't put it down. And it's made walking even richer to go around and recognize all these pieces of puzzle, historical puzzle that I hadn't been aware of. But I kept seeing houses. Why didn't that make the report? And then Kathy, who is a friend, shared with me the letter that she sent to you. And I thought, yes, okay, if she's far more knowledgeable than I am. And if she is concerned that these are not on the report, then I wanted to come. And I actually just took her photos and put together a PowerPoint that I won't go through, because I think, Jay, can you confirm, did you say that all of Kathy's houses are now going to be considered?
No, not necessarily. They'll all be looked at by the
considered. Yeah,
they'll all be considered. Definitely.
Yeah. So I won't take up the time to go through the PowerPoint, because I just wasn't sure. Again, I came to first of all say, thank you for doing this. Thank you for a really excellent page turner report, and just to register my concern that there were a lot of houses that seemed to be missing. But that I'm not an architectural expert by any means. And then also the other thing is just what Ingrid Wilcox said. Living in Verdugo Woodlands, I see areas, pockets that to me just scream should be a historic district. And so I was very disappointed to see no light blue areas identified in the report. So again, just hoping that that can be reconsidered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Byron Taylor, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, commissioners and staff. My name is Byron Taylor, and I'm on the board for the Glendale Historical Society. Tonight, I am pleased to compliment both the City of Glendale and ARG for their partnership in reasonable and fair-minded preservation. The draft report submitted by ARG is generally solid, and we support tonight's public forum for thought and recommendations to make the final report that can become a useful tool in preservation action in the years to come. In addition to being a board member with Glendale Historical Society, I reside in the Verdugo Woodlands in a home we are lucky to have on the Glendale Historic Register. Tonight, I would like to comment on the draft ARG report section on potential historic districts starting on page 213. It is understandable that some potentially eligible historic properties and potential districts may have been missed given the nature of the survey process. Rest assured, we understand the survey is not intended to be and cannot be definitive. Additional potential historic resources and districts are likely to be identified in the future. In reviewing the ARG report on potential historic districts, I noticed an absence of reference to the greater Verdugo Woodlands area, including Montecito Heights to the north of us. Several months ago, before this same commission, ARG presented a report on the pending Cleveland Knolls Historic District, and during this public hearing, ARG commented that that there were likely some potential historic districts in the Verdugo woodlands. The Glendale Historical Society would like the survey to be updated to include them. Finally, on behalf of the Glendale Historical Society, I would like to thank Jay Platt, who stepped out of the room for a moment, and congratulate him for his many years of service to the city of Glendale and wish him success in his retirement. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Francesca Smith? You've got 3 minutes as well.
Thank you. Could I first ask for a glass of water? Because I am dying,
Yes.
and I know, thank you. I'm so sorry to ask for that. So I'm a subject matter expert. I have more than 40 years of experience doing this. I have managed and performed surveys throughout the United States, usually for the State Office of Historic Preservation approval. Thank you. Sorry. For federal projects as well as CEQA and other sorts of things, thousands and thousands and thousands of properties. And none of those evaluations had things saying, this is important for its association with the community, but we don't know why. So many of these forms did. I'm getting ahead of myself, unfortunately. If this survey is being changed by the comments that you're receiving and you are deciding, then you can't adopt it. I just wanted to remind you of that politely. The survey context statement is exceptional. They did a great job of it. Unfortunately, it's almost as though it was passed off to other people who had never performed surveys, who didn't understand how to do it. Things like guessing on what building foundations and materials are is preposterous. The North Glendale Post Office being important for its association with the community, but there is no actual association that they've unearthed. Makes no sense. If I were reviewing this, which I have reviewed thousands as well, I would kick it back. You may have noticed that I had an attachment 1 to my long cranky letter. Attachment 1 was reminding my friend Ani at the city that the consultant needs to perform a record search. In the record search, they wouldn't just get the information that a property is determined eligible or listed, they would learn why. And that's important to understanding the community. It includes all the backup. The same team had a problem in Pasadena with the same thing. They gave a big presentation on, we can't wait to look at this building, and it's already listed in the National Register or determined eligible. And usually in a report, there is a section at the beginning that lets you know all the things that already are, and that's important because some of those things were overlooked. I'm trying to go quickly. Previous surveys for Glendale may not have been submitted, and this, I know they're getting, that we are getting money for this, so it has to be. This is not, could I have 30 seconds more, if you please?
Of course.
Thank you
Please
so
go
much,
ahead.
I apologize. In the Guide for Local Surveys, it explains exactly what an intensive survey and the significant statement absolutely is a great job. It could be better, but it's as good as we're going to get probably. In attachment 2, I gave you my comments by building showing this. They didn't even have all the surveys to use. There is no demonstration of strength of association. If Temple Sinai is important for its association with the community, don't just guess at it. So I'm hoping that you all will ask that the survey be revised. And I would turn it back to the consultant if I were the reviewer, as I have been for 40 years.
Ms. Smith, I have a question for you. A record search would, that would comprise other documents that have previously been done?
Right, like
for the area?
Right, like that Brand Park was determined eligible for the National Register. There's no difference between it being listed and determined eligible. It has every protection that it would have if it were listed, all of Brand Park. And that was done in 1994. And it would be important for the city to know that.
And when you say a complete record search?
That
I mean-
means you can say, hey, give me a list of what's been looked at, and you get a preposterous ASCII file, is that old-fashioned, of what has been looked at that's almost illegible. But when you ask for a full record search, you get the forms, like the forms that you had to review. You get every form, you get every survey, and that would be helpful. You notice that everything that's been looked at wasn't listed in this, and it should be. Absolutely, it can be an addendum, but they stepped on their own toes. There were lots of things that are already determined eligible for the National Register. Can't get any higher than that. Same value as being listed, but they're saying maybe locally eligible.
Thank
And
you.
that's a lower bar.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing.
Chair Pro Tem, I just want to say we do have one person on the line
thank
for this
you. I should
item.
have
So if we
asked.
can just take their call.
You're on the air.
Alan, you're on the air. Alan, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm
Good
sorry.
evening.
Yes, we can hear you, Alan.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Alan Dish. I respectfully would like to support this endeavor and supplement my, first, I'm sorry I cannot be there, but I would like to supplement my finding as well. It's an American colonial revival house that I believe should also be included in the register from 1922, and it was built by an Armenian named Armena Krokjian. So it's two birds with one stone. And the address would be 630 Kenneth Road, and I would be glad to provide the information. Not to take your time any longer, I want to thank as well Mr. Platt and for his work and wish him a great retirement, and also that he's been a great asset for the city. But also just to say I admire his observation also about the historic districts and how they are forming, or they appear to be coalescing around the foothill of the Verdugos. And this is a wonderfully philosophical even moment of like preserving, as it were, the foothills, because, okay, we could say, well, it's a wealthier area of the city, but also, you know, it's a fire-prone area, so it's in the best interests maybe also of the safety, you could say, of the city, that there be kind of low density in that area, and historic districts, well, that's one of the effects, we could say. Thank you for your time. I mean, of preserving also the low density profile. But I will also conclude and say I agree also with Mr. Platt that the wonderful skyscraper on the corner of Stocker and Brand is also one of my favorites, not to mention the former Church of Christ Science. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. And Jay, did you want to make any comments on any of the public comments?
Well,
At this point,
I have kind of notes on all of the things that were submitted. I don't know that we want to do that. Do you have specific questions? I can talk about the issue that Francesca raised at the end of her discussion about the going to the records that the state has.
Yeah, please do.
There is absolutely no requirement that that be done for this survey. We verified that with the State Historic Preservation Office today. Well, we got your letter yesterday. So we verified that because we take these things seriously and we want to know what we're talking about. And my gut instinct was like, no, because we haven't had that as a requirement for any of our previous surveys. It's useful information. It can be helpful, and it's nice to be complete. But this survey, the goal of the survey was to identify properties that are eligible potentially for the Glendale Register. The survey team, however, there's a thing called BIRD, B-E-R-D, which is a repository that just got updated very recently. So the survey team was using the older version of BIRD when they were doing this. So they're going to go through the new version, see what's new on it, and as necessary or needed, well, same word, right? But they're going to update based on that. So they're not ignoring this previous information, but they went through all of our previous surveys, as I mentioned. They looked at everything, but the fact that that's not necessarily mentioned on every survey form is not how this type of survey was done, a fully intensive. And there should be a better word than intensive, because we are saying on these survey forms that this is an intensive survey. There's a whole other layer of intensive survey. When we did the South Glendale plan, we specifically called it a hybrid reconnaissance, which is the windshield survey versus the very intense who lived here and tell us everything we know about them. We, in the RFP for this survey, asked for the same level of research. So we're not digging into every property owner. We did identify builders and architects when possible. Some property owners are identified as you go through the DPR forms, but that was not the main goal, and we're seeing what appears to be eligible. Again, you know, we're going to, if a house does not have distinctive architecture and does have someone of significance who lived, worked, or whatever at the property, we may not capture that through a survey like this. We can't, in a survey like this, on a budget that the city has and the timeline that we have for our surveys, ever do something where we look at who was associated with 22,026 buildings on our developed parcels just in the East-West Glendale area. We rely on the community to bring that information. So for example, I loved Don Knotts when I was a kid. I really loved Don Knotts. I'm not sure where he stands in the pantheon of my head right now, but famous comic actor of the 60s and into the 70s, kind of a cultural figure, did live in Glendale. Francesca mentions that in her report without the address. If we have that, we can start thinking, A, does the property have architectural significance perhaps? And B, does Don Knotts merit kind of that kind of discussion? Certainly more so than Vic Tayback, who played the chef on Alice, although interesting figure and had a house in the Brockmont Park neighborhood. So these are, you know, that's limitations of surveys in general. We can't expect everything to be discovered through this process, but as you've seen, we do discover a lot. And that's the goal. Survey processes are iterative over time. We're going to learn more in the future, and surveys have a shelf life. So at some point, this survey will probably get resurveyed if we still have historic preservation in America, which is an open question. So,
as far as history, the history aspect goes, was there any thought given to locations that might have, in Glendale, that might have appeared in films? Of course, I'm thinking of the Mildred Pierce house on Jackson. Mm-hmm. But, you know, because of, you know, Hollywood and the studios here, is that an important part of history or not necessarily?
It's an open question in our field, but it's an interesting question. The Brady Bunch house in Studio City was just remodeled to recreate the interior, and the exterior was kind of redone for the fictionalized Brady Bunch. The House of the Seven Gables in Salem, you know, was written about by Nathaniel Hawthorne. It's a work of fiction. I went to the Sherlock Holmes Museum in London, a hilariously fascinating place, but weird as hell. So, but in terms of movie locations, in Los Angeles, there's an argument to be made that some sites could be significant in that way. The Mildred Pierce house was not identified. We have a hold on it in our system because we know that it's of interest in the community. And if you have other examples, it's worth posing that question to the consultants. They may have more experience because they've worked in cities throughout the region, to see what the general consensus is on those. One of my students wrote his thesis on this issue and kind of raised really interesting questions that also raised eyebrows for some. And yeah, so it's hard to say. But I would entertain it.
Is it worth having the consultant consider the Mildred Pierce house, or not really?
If the commission would like them to, they're gonna revisit whatever we're talking about tonight, so.
Because there have been modifications like vinyl windows, but it's still quite recognizable from the film.
Yeah, the bay on the front is there.
I will say, when you see that movie, the other houses on Jackson that you see when they're walking, the daughters are walking up the street, are much more intact, unfortunately, than Mildred's house.
And the problem with Mildred Pierce is it really disses on Glendale a lot.
Well, you know, she had to marry Monty.
Celebrate.
She had to marry Monty Barragan in order to get a mansion in Pasadena, you know.
Right.
Glendale was too working class for Vida.
Well, Nita was whatever, yeah. Vida, yeah.
She said, I think one of Vita's lines was, you know, I'm sick of this town and its dollar days. Whatever those were.
Should be on a monument as you enter Glendale.
Jeffrey, I was going to let you go ahead because you said you had comments and wanted to discuss.
Yeah, thank you. Working backwards, since we were talking about entertainers and Hollywood films, Willie Dixon, musician, lived in Glendale. I don't have his address off the top of my head, but you know, it's like let's add his former residence to the list. This is going to seem kind of random, and it is. These are my notes. So is Jerry Lomax's house on Rimcrest, is that on the registry?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, that's 1993. So that, as of today, is our most recent designation.
Okay. And I thought of it because of the other house that you showed on Rimcrest, which is across the street. Bridges, are bridges included, or?
Many bridges are identified in the survey.
Okay.
And we have several of the steel truss bridges. The Virendale trusses are all designated. And the one over near, what's the name of the park that they did? Fremont Park, there's a truss bridge that's also designated.
Okay, good. This is just an aside, that condominium building that Bill Kreisel did on Monterey. I asked him about that building, and he said that he took an approach of defensive architecture with it. And it's the first time I'd heard the term.
It explains the base.
Yeah, the whole exterior, he said, he purposely designed it in a way where it couldn't be modified, or not modified easily. And then I have 3 addresses. Can I just call those out?
Sure.
2885 Edgewick. And that's going to be a 7R. It's not visible from the street. That's the Gregory Ain house. The only house he did in Glendale. 1508 Bellevue and 1502 Bellevue.
1502?
1502.
Okay.
And so the report called out 2 AQ Jones houses on Sheridan, and these are part of that set. So these should also.
These are on the street or hidden?
No, these are quite visible.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And that's what I had.
Jay, I have a more general question. For instance, like you mentioned the Neutra houses, and of course we also have Schindler and other architects, but Did the consultant, take significant steps to determine that, they looked at all the work of well-known architects in Glendale? Meaning, for instance, this is one example, but, we just designated that Gerard Colcord house on Royal. And of course, it's not another issue is the list of historic resources on the register has not really been updated since sometime in 2025. And so the most recent additions to the register don't show up there.
Thought we, on the website?
Well, I didn't check.
I thought we had updated that.
Well, you might have. I mean, the last time I looked at it, it hadn't been.
Okay.
But, and the reason I questioned it is because the consultant's report cited 2025 as like the most recent date of that list. And so, but I didn't go back and look at it for updates. But anyway, but for instance, so I think there are 1 or 2 Colcord houses. But for instance, to me, he's a significant architect. I mean, would they, is the architect enough to get a house on, on this survey? Or are they looking at, for instance, they might judge that that's a late example of Colcord and isn't particularly distinctive or something, although
The house you just recommended designation on Royal, the Colcord, is a very late Colcord.
Yes.
And that didn't give you pause or counsel. In general, we tell people, like, just nominating a house because it was designed by X architect needs context. So it's not enough to say that Gerard Colcord did this. We have to say, we have the research to say, okay, Colcord's an important figure in architectural history in Southern California for this or that reason, which we had for the nomination for the Royal Boulevard house. But especially a lot of people say, this was done by this builder. Really hard for us to go anywhere with a builder unless it was a significant builder and perhaps that builder's own house or something, because they did hundreds, if not thousands, of properties in Glendale and wherever else. So it can be. It's not an easy answer, I guess.
But
it's definitely a start. When we have kind of a name brand architect, the research is easier, so we can put this property in the context of that person's career, because every architect has lesser and greater works.
I guess more what I was asking is, would the consultant have been aware of all of the homes in Glendale that were designed by significant, architects?
No, we don't have that information. I'm concerned because Jeffrey's mention of the 2 houses on Bellevue, we haven't.
Bellevue. Belleu.
Oh, I've always said below.
Yeah.
Bellevue. Okay, Bellevue. Well, the way I wrote it, it kind of looks like that. We have a list that the Modern Committee gave Glendale years ago, before I started, that we've shared with consultants. So I'm kind of worried if they didn't pick those up. And now I'm thinking, did I share that list? I don't remember. But that's where we have, the Gregory Ain, we have the Koenig, we have other Joneses. I drove around when I first started here looking for all of those, and a lot of them were gone or beyond recognition. So, but yeah, I'll make sure, I'll look at these addresses specifically and make sure that we got that. Because if we have 4 intact Quincy Jones houses in A.Q. Jones houses in an area, that's an interesting thing to have, so.
Yeah, it would be good to make sure that they had access to that list or whatever information we could provide.
Yeah, but unlike Pasadena, as Ani mentioned for the house she brought tonight, Pasadena has almost every architect of every property, every tiny little bungalow they know who designed that house, and for whatever reason, we didn't have the foresight to put that on our applications.
We're talking about architects and known architects, and there's more than one Paul R. Williams house in Glendale. I think there's maybe 3.
We know of 3, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
So
one was identified in the South Glendale survey. We have the one on just beyond on Arbor Drive, and I cannot remember where the other one is, but only one of them is designated.
right, it's North Glendale.
Yeah, near Brockmont Park. So.
Right.
Is that a
Which is a
Spanish?
remarkable house.
Is that a Spanish colonial revival?
Yeah.
Because I remember touring that and the sighting of that, and it was like sort of a smaller version of estates he did in Pasadena.
Yeah, it's on a little peninsula lot, and it has this great formal garden, this very beautiful parterre and garden. And the woman who owns it, I believe, is one of our favorite property owners in the city. She is a wonderful person and super cool. So,
Because, I remember touring that, and that is designated
yeah,
already?
that one's designated.
The other one.
The one near Adams Hill was identified in South Glendale survey, and I'm blanking on the other one.
Because the other one, and I'm not remembering the address, is also in this district, this area that we're talking about.
Yeah, so if you could share, if you can track down the address, that would be great. So.
There was one on Kenneth that had been substantially altered and got torn down just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, with a very unfortunate new house, but
Yeah,
we
but I mean, I don't
looked at
think-
that one very carefully, and it had been modified by Claire Earle, who designed the Daly House and is an interesting architect who worked in modernism and other veins. And there were little pieces of it still on the front facade. The back was destroyed by the Claire Earle additions, like extensive additions, all the way around the back and the sides. So we looked at that one very carefully and couldn't make an argument.
Thanks, Jeffrey, because that was going to be one of my questions, too. About, which Paul Williams might have made the list.
I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. I'm expecting there to be more once the archives open up. So.
What do you mean?
The Paul R. Williams archives.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because there's, come on. He did more than 3 houses in Glendale.
Right.
I'm sure.
For Paul Williams fans, it's a feast year. There will be 3 museum exhibits in LA, one at the Getty, one at USC, and I can't remember where the other one is. What's at Lechmont? That's right, yeah.
So if I could hear from some of the other commissioners, are we basically in agreement that we would like the additional addresses from Kathy Yerka's email and Francesca Smith's email and what we heard from the public today and the Glendale Historical Society and what Jeffrey has added, that we would like the consultant to look at and consider all of those?
Yeah, I think also taking additional time to just address the legitimate concerns by the community, I think is a good idea before we send it to council. So, and I think it makes the final document even more powerful and stronger because it's kind of standing up to some of the comments and fixing some of the issues that are legitimate in the process. So, yeah, that would be my kind of recommendation is to the staff to tell us.
I recommend that we also ask the consultant to give brief written rationales for saying yes. Well, if it's yes, they'll create DPR forms, and if it's no, so that Ani will be able to explain to you. I don't think the city's going to fund another hearing, and I doubt they're going to volunteer to come to one. But
it would be great. It would be great to have some rationale
about the reasoning behind decision making.
Yeah, and the more transparent we are with the process, I think it's also better, right?
Sure.
So when it's publicly commented like that from the actual surveyor, I think it would be very beneficial for the community, us as a commission, and city council.
I noticed one of Kathy Yurka's homes was the 1437 Hillside, which we just put on the register.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is not on the register. The owners have moved to London, and so the new owner is going to have to start the process all over again. They can resubmit the same form, and unless the attorneys tell us otherwise, they will have to come, the new owners would have to come back here. But luckily, we didn't bring it to council, so it's not on the register because they let us, this all happened very recently. But the consultants did have it. It was an oversight on their part. We did inform them about that one to add. There's another house in the Woodlands, one of Greg and Simon's properties by the German-named architect that I never remember, that's actually called out, I can't remember which of those comment letters, called out as it should be in the survey. That one is in the survey, so one of them we can just cross off the list right now.
And I guess I'd like to move on to discuss with the rest of the commission the recommended historic districts. One, I thought Kathy Yurka's point about it's now really the Disney campus. But those were all light industrial buildings built after the Glendale Airport closed. And many of them seem pretty intact. And also, since it was light industrial, it's a little bit different than commercial or residential. But I wasn't sure why that would not be considered a potential historic district.
Well, we did a survey when the Grand Central campus, largely driven by Disney, was under consideration. That survey didn't find a district there. And the ARG, HRG, and I keep hearing ARG, never forget this is a team effort on both firms' parts. They looked at that carefully. They considered whether there was a district in that area, and they couldn't. There were too many alterations. And a lot of the buildings are owned by Disney, which they paint all their buildings the same color. They put security screening across the tops of every roof based on their insurance company. That's one you saw. There's the Grand Central Bowl. This is the cool, googie bowling alley canopy. That building's really altered. It's not really, in my opinion or the consultant's opinion, eligible. But we have treated that canopy over time as a historic feature that we're trying to protect. It's also got a Pulp Fiction tie-in, which is cool. So Disney, based on their insurance company, wanted to put 42-inch high kind of perimeter walls on top of that canopy, and also wanted to put a bunch of mechanical equipment up there. And we worked with them, and they actually listened. So that didn't happen. That's the nice thing where we don't go out on a limb and say this building is historic, but if we're working with people who are open to listening, we can often find good preservation solutions even without the formality of something being identified. So.
And this is pretty minor, but hold on. I was talking to Daniel Paul, our chair, today, and he's out of town. But he asked me to ask you and Ani to make a correction, have the consultant make a correction on page 143 of their report. He wants Walter E. Disney to be changed to Walter Elias Disney.
Oh, okay.
And I promised that I would bring that to your attention.
Okay, I'm going to let Ani take care of that one. So.
Yep. What I'd like to do with the other commissioners now is discuss why, or maybe Jay, you can, and Ani, you can give some perspective. And we heard from the public as well. Verdugo Woodlands, there didn't seem to be any proposed historic districts, and just driving through the Woodlands, it seems hard to believe that nothing would be spotted as potential in that whole northern Verdugo Woodlands area.
Well, years ago, Twice in my earlier career, people took me on drives through the Woodlands, and I had trouble seeing a coherent district there back in the day. When the nomination came in, I was like, okay, I redrove every street and kind of went through it. And I was like, yeah, I see where people are coming from. I kind of get it. The consultant ultimately agreed that there was not a full coherent district at the originally proposed boundary. And they also looked to see if there were smaller districts. We haven't talked about that directly, so that could be a question if you want clarification on why they didn't see other districts, or if you want them to look at it again, reconsider. It would be helpful if someone in the community said, oh, I think, here's a subset of that original proposal that's very interesting, very intact, whatever it is. I think anyone should entertain that. So if you give us direction on that, we'll convey that to the consultants.
Yeah, I would like you to. I mean, personally, we'll have to see how the other commissioners feel. But I wouldn't go back to that proposed district that was so large and encompassing. I was thinking of maybe there are some smaller segments of the Woodlands, that could qualify as, much smaller historic districts.
We specifically asked them to look for the potential smaller districts, and they didn't come back with anything. But again, we didn't really have that conversation, so.
But I think the residents up there and what we heard from the Historical Society and the public today, I think it would be good for the consultants if they can't recommend anything, maybe to give a little bit of context as to why.
Well, we're going to ask them with your direction, but my recommendation is for every decision, thumbs up, thumbs down on everything on the laundry lists that we've received, to have a brief rationale for why they accepted it. And when they accept a new item, that's going to be, we did a DPR for that one. If they reject either a broad picture issue that was raised or a specific address that they just don't see in the context of the broad East-West survey kind of meriting identification, we'll have them specifically say why they didn't see that. So the same thing can happen for the districts. And as I said earlier, even if at the end of the day they do look at it again, they do give it deeper thought, and don't come back with a Woodlands district, that doesn't mean people in the neighborhood can't propose something kind of de novo and be considered by the city for designation.
Yes, I mean, it's a good point, because, and the survey is not final either, in the sense that people with properties that are not going to be included on the survey can also come to Ani in the future to, to have her give them perspective on whether their home or property might be eligible for the Glendale Register and the Mills Act contract. I mean, it's not like set in stone that if your property's not on this survey, you're going to be excluded from consideration in the future. I'm sure other properties will come along that won't be listed on the survey that, end up being designated as historic at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
So, same thing with historic districts, people can always propose another historic district. Do you think there's any, I'm not an expert on the canyons, but has there ever been a look at potential historic districts in the canyons?
We've talked about Chevy Chase Estates area over time. A lot of integrity issues, so there's not a lot of cohesive streetscapes that I think are likely to be districts. Back in the day, if it had been built out as proposed with all the Lloyd Wright houses and some of the infrastructure that was proposed, we'd have one of the best districts in the country. But yeah, again, it's still a possibility, and I haven't personally, even though I thought by now I would have driven every street in Glendale, but I have not. And so there's a lot for us to still learn, even with consultants who have driven and looked at, thought about every street in the city. There's room for disagreement, and that disagreement can happen now, or it could happen in 10 or 15 years, and, see what happens.
Jay, with the historic designation with the case study houses, you remember what is that? What was that called?
Multiple property.
Yeah, because I'm forgetting the term.
Multiple property thematic districts.
Yes, yeah. Is that something that could be considered in the future as a result of maybe this survey is, pulling houses that are in different neighborhoods together for whatever reason?
It's an interesting way to identify properties. I think having Glendale Register status for each of those individual properties is probably better. We don't have a provision in the historic district ordinance that suggests that that's something that we would entertain. I don't think anyone who was ever writing that thought that that was going to be an issue in Glendale. But yeah, it's definitely something that's acknowledged by the national federal government and by SHPO. It exists, so it could happen. And Glendale Post and Beam thematic district or something. So yeah, if we had a Glendale Spanish Colonial Revival thematic district, that might be insane. But who knows?
Are there any other comments or questions for Jay and Ani?
No, I mean, I totally agree with looking at the addresses that have been mentioned. I also am struggling to see any extra districts in my head personally. But like you mentioned, that those can always come back and those can always be suggested. But definitely the specific addresses, I agree, should be looked at again.
So, Jay, rather than any motion tonight, do you just need that sort of guidance and request from this commission?
Yeah, well,
to move along?
You do need to make a determination that you want to continue this item to the next hearing, to a date certain, as we say. So that would be a motion that you need to vote on.
Okay. Because, yeah, and then we'll have more.
And state the reason, which I think is pretty clear.
Yes, we're waiting for
additional information
from the consultant. And would someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that Item 8, tonight, Community Development, Department of...
Sorry, it's item 6A.
Item 6A. Be continued for future discussion, as there are multiple properties that we would like to see looked at again, and community requests taken into consideration. And so, yes, so we would like to have that item brought back up in a future commission.
Or our next monthly meeting?
Or our next monthly meeting, yes.
Yeah, and one thought, let me think how this would work. I presume that the consultant will be able to do this within a month.
That's what I was thinking.
When we do it, if they weren't for some reason, we would just have to continue the item again at the next meeting to the next hearing, and so it's another official motion like this, but yeah, that motion works.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Ani, could we have roll call, please?
Yes, thank you so much. Commissioner Head?
Yes.
Commissioner Bartonian?
Yes.
Commissioner Cusack?
Yes.
And Chair Pro Tem Durham?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. The motion passes 4-0.
And the good news is this won't affect our funding for the grant, so.
Yes. And thank you for, confirming that we did have a little more time to deal with this without losing funding. We're moving on to item 8, Community Development Department updates. Ani or Jay, do you have any updates for us?
We do. We just have a couple of updates for the commission. Last month, well, actually, a couple of weeks ago, we took 2 of the Glendale Register and National Register, Glendale Register and Mills Act applications that the Historic Preservation Commission had recommended for approval to City Council. 228 Spencer Street, which, if you remember, it was that charming storybook house.
Was it not whimsical?
It was very whimsical, perhaps one of the most whimsical properties of the year. That had the 2 twisted juniper tree trunks at the front. That was, the commission recommended that for Mills Act. We took that to council, motion for that one passed. 4-0, Commissioner Garapetian was, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, it's been a long week. Council member Garapetian was not present at that meeting, but it passed with a 4-0 vote.
Nope, 3-1.
My goodness, I'm so sorry, Jay, yes.
Oh, no, that was 4-0. My
4-0?
mistake,
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead,
It was 4-0.
Yeah, sorry.
So 4-0 vote. I think the city, some of the council members and Mayor Kasakian had some questions about, which I think we also discussed at commission, about the fire regulations, insurance, particularly how is that going to look in the future with those trees that are abutting the property. So these are kind of questions that are going to be coming forward, and I assume we're going to be having to think about these things on a more big picture scale beyond just this 228 Spencer Street property. But it is interesting that with 228 Spencer Street, like, the trees have such, we're done with so much intent by the original owner. So it's just something to keep in mind, as perhaps not just for this property, but who knows, maybe there are other properties where there may be some trees, landscaping that are character defining features. So that was just something that was brought up just as kind of a question and concerns that council members had, but the motion passed. The second property that we took forward for city council review and approval was 1524 Ridgeview, which, if you remember, was that incredible mid-century modern sort of split-level house that was designed by, I always butcher the name, so Jay, I'm gonna...
Duquette and...
Bissell.
Bissell.
Yes,
Bissell
Duquette.
and Duquette.
Bissell and Duquette, who, it had the very aeronautical inspired sort of roof line and the very dramatic, expansive 8-foot-long eaves. That one had the addition at the front, and ultimately the motion did pass, but the motion for that one passed 3-1. With one of the council members choosing not to vote for it. No reason was specifically given for.
Councilperson Asatrian voted against it. So.
But that one passed for both the Glendale Register and the Mills Act with a 3-1 vote. That one, there was again some interesting discourse and dialogue amongst the council members that did vote for it about mid-century modernism and how we kind of how certain additions may look against the residents. So good news, they are moving forward. So staff will be, me, I guess now.
Yeah.
I'll be working on getting their Mills Act drafted by the end of the year so that we can have that ready, signed, and sent over to the county assessor. So just wanted to.
That's great.
What was the date of that meeting?
That meeting was August 11th. And I believe that's the end of our updates from our department. So thank you guys so much.
So before we adjourn, this is what I brought up earlier. I think we'd all like to probably say something to Jay on his retirement. And would you like to, Kevin?
Yeah, Jay, I mean, I met you about a year ago, and thank you for the warm welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure. and learning from you and kind of working with you, and for you to kind of welcome me in the Historic Commission. Wishing you a lot of success in your retirement, a lot of fun. I'm sure I'm going to see you around Glendale, Eagle Rock.
I'm around, so
Thank you again.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been so much fun, and I've definitely learned a lot. I will miss your turn of phrase. You have a great way of saying words, and I don't necessarily envy Ani having to step into the role of dealing with all the difficult questions and personalities, but I'm sure she's up for it, but we're really going to miss you.
Thank you very much. I love that you use the word fun. I've always thought of HPC as being the fun commission, so, yeah.
Jay, I want to wish you a long and healthy retirement.
Thank you.
I hope that I will see you around. And I've known you, we've known each other through the Conservancy and Modern Committee, and it's going back 25 years.
Yeah.
And I have been a witness and a participant in your career.
True.
And I'm very fortunate to have that experience, and I'm grateful to you because I do learn. I've learned so much from you over the years, and I've also benefited in ways that I wouldn't have expected, and I'm very. That's part of why I feel so grateful. So.
Thank you very much. That's really very nice.
Thank you.
And Jeffrey and I have a lot of overlapping interests, so I'm sure we're going to be crossing paths even more than with some of you. So.
Jay, I echo all the comments that have been made by the other commissioners, but I have a little anecdote. I was...
Ruh-roh.
Well, no. I was looking for a retirement card, right? And I was in a store, and there were 2 long aisles, floor, almost to ceiling with, all these cards. And I'm looking for, like, the retirement section, and there's birthdays, and there's new baby, and sympathy, and, congratulations, and, like, I can't find a retirement section. Finally, right down at the floor level in this, fairly, limited section, it said retirement. And I actually found a card that, I'm not much on greeting card sentiment, right? But I found a card, and I'm not sure it really belonged in the retirement section, and I know you're moving on to other endeavors. But this card really spoke to me about you, and if you don't mind, I'm going to read the greeting card to you.
Of course.
It says, "You're successful because you think deeply, feel strongly, and care passionately about the things that are important in this world. You're successful because you have so many strengths, talents, and gifts that you share with others. You're successful because you're true to yourself and what you believe in. You're successful in every sense and meaning of the word. Congratulations. I wish you all the best in the future and hope to see you maybe occasionally."
Thank you very, very much. Greeting cards, I guess you're supposed to cry when you read them, so I'm tearing up a little. That's very, very sweet and overstated, but
no, it just spoke to me. It's like, this is perfect for Jay,
I'm not going to say that I'm not touched and happy to hear you say that. So I've loved working with HPC for all these years. My first day of work was an HPC meeting that I wasn't presenting or doing anything. I was just an observer of that meeting, and I learned a valuable lesson that meeting, which is always visit the properties before you come to HPC. So I've never not done that, but it's been great, and it's revolving cast of characters, and you guys are a fantastic commission right now, following many other fantastic commissions. love how thoughtful you are in your deliberations, how kind you are with our applicants, and especially when we have people in more contentious settings, respectful and attentive. I used to work at the LA Conservancy and would go to city council meetings and planning and land use management meetings where I would be testifying along with many other people who were just ignored by the people sitting at the dais. And in general, in Glendale, DRB and other boards and commissions, I think, are very respectful. But this commission has always been just so open to kind of new things and always welcoming for our staff. I'm very excited to be handing things off to Ani, who is totally ready for this. And she'll be surprised every so often. And I've given her permission to call me, but I don't expect her to because she's going to figure it all out. So, thanks for your warm wishes. That was very nice. And carry on.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned at, it looks like about 7:53.
He's been waiting all day.
Yeah.